Hi guys, just to be honest, I got bored. I've been trying to make a video for the last 3 days. The weather is absolutely freezing. Every time I go out there, within minutes my hands are absolutely rock solid. And on top of that, there's road repairs going on not too far from here, so every time I try to record something the sounds just come off. And because it's getting dark at about 4 o'clock, there's nothing I can do about it. So I just thought I'd do a quick video, and I thought I would talk about some of my memories of archery. So it might give you an idea of why I'm into archery and why I'm still trying to do archery. It goes back a long time. My first ever memory that's connected with archery was of my dad. Not shooting, but I can remember one Saturday morning, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, it was the weekend. We jumped in the car. He says, "How are you going to give me a hand?" I was about 8-year-old. We jumped in the car and we went to a building site. Now this building site, I'm assuming it was somewhere near where my dad worked, otherwise I couldn't understand. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They were actually knocking down old Victorian street houses in preparation for building something a little bit modern, or more modern. I mean, this was like this is in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, probably about 1969, 1970. Anyway, we went along and he had a word with this guy who was on the building site, well, the demolition site, and this guy started pulling out all these floorboards, these old floorboards. That's what they were. I mean, they were half an inch thick, so they were really thick things. And between us, we started cutting them down into just over 3-foot lengths. And we piled the back. I mean, my dad had a Mini, a tiny little Mini, 1960s Mini. And he piled the back seat full of all these cut up floorboards. Anyway, like a certain amount of money exchanged hands, no idea how much it was, probably wasn't much. And we went home and we spent the rest of the weekend splitting these floorboards into half-inch squares. Now the thing that impressed me more than anything was how straight these boards split. And I can remember saying, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he was basically, he made arrows. Now I don't ever remember him actually shooting, but I can remember on at least 3 or 4 occasions him making arrows. And that's what these pieces of floorboard were for. And he would split them into half-inch squares. Ones that had nail holes in, they actually went and made a nice bonfire in the back garden. But the other ones, it was surprising how straight they were. They seemed to split straight down, obviously following the grain of the wood, but just split into perfect half-inch squares. And then he started, and he tried to show me as well, but I wasn't really interested, other than the fact that it was something to do with my dad. He started shaping them on what's called a shooting board, where you would put the block. It had a V cut in it, and you put the piece of wood in, you'd shave one side, turn it over, shave one side, and you keep going until you end up with an almost round shaft. And then he would basically sand it. And he used bullet points that were actually bullets, because at the time you could actually go down to a local gun shop and just buy bullets. I don't mean carriages, I don't mean like the whole thing, I mean just bullets. He would just go and buy bullets. And he would heat them up, get all the lead out of them, so he was just left with the copper jacket, and he would heat treat them, and that became the bullet point. Simple as that. He went to a local farm and got goose feathers on a regular basis, and that's my first memory of archery, was my dad making arrows. And like I said, I never saw him shoot. I don't know if he shot. I don't know if he actually owned a bow, but I do know he made arrows. And a funny thing was, years later, when I started getting into reenactment, I started going to visit other reenactment events to see what was actually available, and see if I could take any ideas back to the reenactment group that I was a part of. And I was just starting then. This was in about 1986, 1987. I was just starting to think about archery from a historical point of view. I mean, before that, I'd played with it, like you do. But I was starting to think seriously about it from a historical point of view. And the longbow started to catch my interest. And I was stood there watching this gig, this reenactment event. I can't remember where it was. I think it was Barnard Castle, which is a castle near me, not that far away. And this guy came up to me and he just said, "Hello, Sean." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Hi, Sean, you're Sean Henderson, aren't you?" I said, "Oh, yeah." Turns out it was one of my old teachers, a Mr. O'Connor. Frank, his name was. But it also turned out that my dad used to buy arrows off my dad. They knew each other. Now, when I say that my family have always been into hunting and shooting sports, and there was a certain amount of poaching that was done on a semi-regular basis. It didn't surprise me to find out that this old Irishman, he was 73 when I met him at this gig, knew my dad. We lived in the same town, knew my dad and knew my uncles and some of my cousins. And it turns out that they went shooting together and he bought arrows off my dad. Who knew? I had no idea. All that time I actually spent with him in his classroom, hating the guy. He was an absolute tyrant of a teacher and I hated him. Anyway, at this reenactment gig, I think he seemed to notice I was interested in the archery, and we got talking. Turns out he started doing longbow shooting, or archery, in the Scouts in the 1930s. And he'd been doing it ever since. And he'd amassed quite a bit of knowledge and quite a bit of skill. Guy could shoot. Anyway, long and the short of it, I spent quite a bit of time over the space of about a year just picking his brains. And talking about what they did and what you could do now, things like that, and the different types of shooting that the medieval longbowmen did, like clout shooting, shooting wands, that sort of thing. And he showed me how to do it. Or he gave me some tips and tricks. And I mean, seriously, this guy could shoot. And one of my favouriteest memories of early longbow shooting was when I actually won an Inter-Reenactment Society competition. I'd won the first stage of it, which was just target shooting. It was basically like shooting at boards, which was one form of medieval target shooting. And then the second day was a clout shoot at 150 metres. And I'd recently bought a gorgeous longbow by Pip Bickerstaff, a Bickerstaff longbow. It was a 55-pound draw weight. It was a 74-inch longbow, and it was beautiful. I sold it some years later, which I never had. It was just an awesome experience. And talking to people afterwards, it was quite hard. It was an uphill, 150-metre clout shoot, shooting at a flag. And the closest to the flag won, basically. And I was shooting this gorgeous bow, and I wasn't even getting to full draw. I was only getting about 3/4 draw. Everybody else was straining. They were like full 43, 44, 45 degrees loosing. I didn't even get a full draw, and I was only at about 40 degrees. So I was like literally just pulling it back and letting it go. And we had 3 hours each, and my furthest arrow was 6 foot away from the flag. My nearest was about 6 inches. I was well chuffed. And I won a purse of medieval coins. I mean, it was just a bit of fun. Nothing of any value, other than the fact that if you wanted to buy those coins, it'd cost you £1 each, and I won about 40 of them. Just in a little medieval style purse. But just, it was tricks that Frank had told me about how to aim over distance and things like that. And since then, that sort of like cemented my love affair with archery. Like from that point on, I started doing demonstrations, archery demonstrations at the reenactment events, and like taking part in competitions, not formal competitions, but informal reenactment competitions. And I loved it, and I still do. And I want to continue making some memories to do with it. I don't want to just stop. And since I became ill, the one thing, well, in the last 6 months or so, the one thing that's been on my mind is to get back into shooting. And I think I'm doing okay. The next video, I've just made some new arrows actually to go with that little snake bow, the one I'm giving away, or one of which I'm giving away. And I've made some arrows deliberately for that bow, and they shoot so well. And I know I'm only shooting at 6 meters at the moment, but I'm getting some really, really good groups. Anyway, that was just a quick video. I thought I'd have a bit of a waffle on. Tell you why I haven't made a video all week, because of bloody roadworks. Hopefully I might be able to get a video made with some shooting tomorrow. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. I mean, I enjoyed just sitting and waffling for a couple of minutes. Don't forget to subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and we shall talk again soon.